Good morning. If everyone want to find a place to sit and take your seats, we're going to get started. So with that, I will say this. The committee will come to order. Welcome and thank you for joining today's hearing. And it's entitled A Review of Title VII, the USDA Implementation of Research Programs. After brief opening remarks, members will receive testimony from our witness today, and then the hearing will be open to questions. In consultation with the ranking member and pursuant to Rule 11E, I want to make the members of the subcommittee aware that other members of the full committee may join us today. I'd like to take this moment to make an opening statement, if you will. Good morning, and welcome to the first hearing of the Subcommittee on Conservation, Research, and Biotechnology for the 118th Congress. I also want to welcome Ranking Member Spanberger, and she'll be here in a moment, I think. She's at another meeting, and I look forward to working with her as we reauthorize a farm bill. As United States Representative for Indiana's 4th Congressional District, I know how important agriculture is to our nation's identity and for our economy. As some of you might know, Indiana is home to a varied and immensely productive agricultural industry, and it's the 8th largest agricultural exporter in the nation. And with over 80% of our land is being used for agricultural production. Indiana is also home to many great colleges and universities, and one in particular being Purdue University, where agricultural research is a high-ranking priority. I also know we have some folks from University of Illinois here today, so welcome. So despite historically strong bipartisan support for the topic, today's hearing is the first time since 2019 that the committee has spent some time on research and the implementation of Title VII of the 2018 Farm Bill. Since 2019, we have witnessed the resiliency of the American producer. They have seen record inflation, a global pandemic, geopolitical turmoil, and how burdensome overregulation has tested our farmers and ranchers in ways that are unimaginable. Yet our producers responded to ensure our nation and many other nations around the world had access to the safest, most affordable food, fiber, and energy supply. And much of that resiliency is based on the work of the department. Today, we will hear directly from the USDA on implementation of key research programs, research program efficacy, and opportunities within research to increase productivity for future generations of farmers and ranchers. While some programs like Agriculture and Food Research Initiative and the Specialty Crop Research Initiative have proven to be effective, other programs like the Agriculture Advanced Research and Development Authority Pilot Program have not been implemented. This specific program, known as AGARDIA, was created in the 2018 Farm Bill to conduct advanced research on long-term and high-risk challenges for agriculture. However, USDA just published the congressionally mandated strategic plan just 2 days ago. That's over 3 years after the original deadline. When the committee marked up bipartisan budget views and estimates letter a few weeks ago, Chairman Thompson asked us to look at the return on investment in each title of the Farm Bill. According to the USDA Economic Research Service, public spending on agricultural research has yielded the economy $20 for every dollar that we spent. Despite the benefits of investing in agricultural research, public spending has steadily declined since its peak in 2002. When accounting for inflation, the United States now spends roughly the same amount on agricultural research that was spent in the 1970s. While this is in and of itself concerning, it is further compounded by the fact that our competitors, China, India, and Brazil, have rapidly increased spending. In fact, China is now the world's top investor in agricultural research. As we seek to remain competitive with China, we cannot forget about the importance of agricultural research in ensuring the United States has the safest, most abundant, most affordable food and fiber supply in the world. I would like to thank the USDA Undersecretary Sylvanas Jacobs-Young for taking time to be here with us today. Dr. Jacobs-Young has an incredible background, and I'm looking forward to her testimony. With that, I now would like to welcome the distinguished ranking member and gentlewoman from Virginia, Mrs. Spanberger, for any opening remarks she would like to give.
Thank you, Chairman Baird. I am so excited to be here with you for our first hearing as a subcommittee of the 118th Congress. I appreciated your opening remarks, particularly the focus on the research investments that we are or are not making and their impact on American producers and agriculture across the country. I look forward to working with you on issues that are important to growers and producers across the United States, especially as they relate to strengthening voluntary conservation programs at USDA, investing in our conservation and research workforce, and of course, ensuring that the United States remains at the forefront of agricultural research and technologies. Knowing that as we work towards passing the 2023 Farm Bill, I'm committed to working with you as a partner on issues within our subcommittee's jurisdiction. I am so proud of what this subcommittee accomplished last year, including finally getting our Growing Climate Solutions Act signed into law. And Chairman Baird, I am thankful for your support of that legislation last Congress. And today I'm excited to work more closely with you this Congress when it comes to bringing farmers to the table on all these issues. Today, we are here to review how agricultural research programs support our country's producers and our country's economy overall. Over the past 30 years, we have seen the benefits of agricultural research. A report from the Economic Research Service showed that every dollar of public research and development funding had a $20 return on investment in the American economy between 1990 and 2011. Despite this nearly unheard of return on investment, public agricultural research funding peaked way back in 2002. Over the past 20 years, the funding has declined by a staggering 33%, and as a result, we have less capacity for research, even as the need for innovation is more urgent than ever before, both in Virginia and across the country. Global temperatures rise, increasingly severe natural disasters, and the impacts of climate change on America's crop and livestock producers should make it clear. We need to invest in research, and we need to support American researchers who are spurring innovation. This critical work is happening at land-grant universities and USDA research facilities across America. My home state of Virginia has two tremendous land-grant universities, Virginia Tech and Virginia State University. These universities collaborate with USDA to complete cutting-edge research. And for example, they bring brilliant staff and students at VSU's Agriculture Research Center have focused on new ways soil science can contribute to the fight against climate change. And recently I had the chance to visit with professors and students at Virginia Tech. And their researchers are focused on agricultural innovation and ways to address climate change through energy and greenhouse gas emissions, sustainable transportation, climate justice, and forestry work. This is incredible and necessary research of the future. I am pleased to work with Undersecretary Jacobs-Young, and I am pleased to see the work that she has undertaken. Despite the need for more funding than Congress has provided for these research initiatives, they have been extraordinary. Throughout this hearing, I'm eager to hear from her about how Title VII has been implemented since 2018 and areas where Congress can improve upon the title. I'm particularly interested in your thoughts on ways that research can further conservation efforts, ways that we can shape a better future amid devastating impacts of climate change on America's rural communities, and how we can best prepare ourselves for the challenges that our producers face, be they weather events or issues like the avian flu. With that, I yield back. Mr. Chairman, thank you again for holding this hearing.
Thank you for those comments. With that, I'd like to recognize Chairman Thompson, Chairman of the Ag Committee, for any opening comments he would like to make.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, and thank you to Chairman Baird and Ranking Members Spanberger for hosting this hearing to discuss the research title of the Farm Bill. Over the last couple years, I've traveled to nearly 40 states to hear directly from farmers, ranchers, and foresters And through these travels, I've come to realize that American agriculture can be defined in 3 words: science, technology, and innovation. Through advances in science, technology, and innovation, American producers have increased outputs nearly 3-fold since the 1940s, with little to no change in inputs. And we know these advances would not have been possible without the great research, extension, and education being done by our land-grant universities. Many of the programs at these land-grant universities and even our non-land-grant colleges of agriculture rely on to conduct cutting-edge research are authorized in the research title. As we look to write the 2023 Farm Bill, it's important to hear from USDA about the implementation of new and existing research programs to learn what's working, what isn't, and what needs fixed. Undersecretary Jacob Young, thank you for taking the time to be here today. And I'm excited to welcome you back to the committee to talk about the importance of agricultural research, and I look forward to a productive discussion. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I might just say that the chair would request that other members submit their opening statements for the record, so the witness may begin the testimony and ensure that there's ample time for questions. You know, our witness for today's hearing is Dr. Shavonna Jacobs Young, Undersecretary of Research, Education, and Economics at the Department of Agriculture. And you know, I would like to indicate some of her accomplishments. I mean, the department is responsible for ARS, ERS, NAS, INIFA, and the Office of the Chief Scientist, of which she is the Chief Scientist. And so her accomplishments are varied, and she has had experience in all of these various departments. And so we really are proud and pleased to have her here and recognize all the accomplishments that she's had in her career. So Dr. Jacobs Young, thank you for joining us today, and we'll now proceed to your testimony. You will have 5 minutes. The timer in front of you will count down to 0, at which point your time has expired. But as the chairman, I have some leniency in that regard, so if you need, okay. But anyway, you may begin when you're ready, and we are very pleased to have you here today.
Thank you so much. Chair Baird, Ranking Member Spanberger, and members of this subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to come before you today to discuss the state of USDA's Research, Education, and Economics, or REE, mission area, which includes the Agricultural Research Service, the Economic Research Service, the National Agricultural Statistics Service, the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, and the Office of the Chief Scientist. The success of the REE mission area is rooted in partnerships. Partnerships with technical assistance providers that give producers the tools they need to adapt as they feed the world, with institutions to advance agricultural innovation and cultivate the next generation of agricultural leaders, and with Congress to ensure that decision makers have the tools they need to support farmers and ranchers across the country. Publicly funded agricultural research and development often have a less told story, but we live and reap the benefits of these investments every single day. The impacts of USDA-funded research in particular shape the way we eat, clothe ourselves, and adapt to a changing climate. In Indiana, for example, NASS collects corn and soybean data, while ARS is spending upwards of $40 million this year to fund research on sustainable biomass production, feedstock conversion technologies, and new ways of turning agricultural waste into clean energy. NIFA, through its bioproduct pilot program, is helping to accelerate the development of a more circular economy where agricultural resources are harvested, consumed, and regenerated sustainably. In states like Virginia, where the Delmarva region produces most of the poultry consumed by Americans on the East Coast, ARS is spending upwards of $7 million this year to combat the threat of avian influenza. ARS is currently researching veterinary medical countermeasures such as diagnostics and vaccines for the early detection, prevention, and eradication of disease outbreaks. This research helps producers make well-informed decisions for their operations. American farmers, ranchers, and producers are incredibly resilient. Production agriculture requires constant innovation and an adaptation as farmers and ranchers pursue climate-smart solutions to extreme weather. Rural businesses require new markets to increase profitability, and underserved communities seek trusted partners to tackle systemic issues. Access to new information and technology undergirds each of these objectives, and when appropriately resourced, REE has a proven track record in providing timely research, data, training, extension service, and economic analysis to support farmers, ranchers, and producers across the supply chain. The U.S. has a long history of making investments in research that pay off for farmers and our economy. Between 1948 and 2019, total agricultural output in the United States grew by 175%. This rise cannot be attributed to increases in agricultural land or labor. Both inputs declined over that period, but stem instead from the adoption of a whole suite of publicly funded innovations in crop and livestock breeding, nutrient use, and pest and farm and field management. These new practices have yielded significant dividends. ERS found that public agriculture research and development investments from 1900 to 2011 generated, on average, $20 in benefits to the U.S. economy for every $1 of spending. Yet federal investments in agriculture research have declined by a third in the past 2 decades, falling far behind our international partners. Once the world's leader, the United States now trails far behind other major nations in public agriculture research investments. This decline in investments means we are missing critical opportunities to capitalize on the powerful potential of our world-class scientists to conduct the type of high-risk, high-reward research necessary to meet the overlapping and rapidly emerging challenges our farmers face. We are missing a chance to help our farmers, especially small and mid-sized producers, be profitable, to help rural communities remain vital, and to ensure that our global food supply chains are resilient to future shocks. That's why I'm pleased that President Biden and Secretary Vilsack are strongly committed to supporting federal agriculture research, development, and deployment, which will define innovation for decades to come. With Congress's support, we are making unprecedented investments to train the next generation of agricultural professionals and accelerating research to support climate-smart agriculture and forestry, to advance nutrition security and precision nutrition, build a stronger economy, and ensure equitable access to our research programs and data. This work is especially critical at a time when, despite record farm incomes over the past 2 years, ERS reports that half of farm households had negative farm income, and most U.S. farm families rely mainly on off-farm income to stay afloat. Boldly reinvested in our nation's public agriculture R&D portfolio will again enable us to create a new revenue stream for producers, regardless of size and geography, drive innovation and technology transfer to spur a new generation of agricultural businesses, and ensure that we have a capable, diverse workforce prepared to overcome emerging threats to our farm and food system. The power of information and research is undeniable, and REE is well positioned to support farmers, ranchers, scientists, and academics alike in tackling some of the most pressing issues facing this country. And I will yield my comments at that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Undersecretary, for that very informative and important testimony. Now we will proceed to members that will be recognized for questions in order of seniority. We will be alternating between majority and minority members, and in order of arrival for those who joined us after the hearing commenced. You are recognized for 5 minutes, each in order to allow us to get to as many questions as possible. And I recognize myself for 5 minutes. So my first question, Madam Undersecretary, deals with African swine fever, simply because we have so many pork producers in our area, and because you mentioned it in your written statement. So I want to know if there's been any progress by ARS scientists toward the development and testing of a vaccine for African swine fever. And is there an estimate on when a vaccine might be commercially available in the United States, as there are other vaccines, and are there other vaccines that ARS has either helped develop or that are in the process of being developed?
Thank you for the question. And the opportunity to share more about our work in African swine fever. As we know, the African swine fever is a highly contagious and deadly viral animal disease affecting domestic and feral swine of all ages. ARS in our Plum Island facility has been hard at work on the African swine fever vaccine for quite some time. We have 4 vaccine candidates that have been licensed to 14 companies worldwide. Currently, Russia, Europe, and Asia are experiencing outbreaks with African swine fever. Working with Vietnam, ARS licensed 2 of our vaccine candidates, which are now have been commercially produced and implemented in Vietnam, and we are seeing great progress and great efficacy with those vaccines. And we're also working with our land-grant universities who are working in the area of helping us with the important task of surveillance and detection methodologies. And so we have made some significant progress on the African swine fever vaccine.
That is really good news, and you mentioned something that I hadn't thought about, but feral swine is becoming an increasing problem in the United States, and so they're also susceptible, but they could be carriers of, and we don't have African swine fever in this country yet, and we hope we never do, but I really appreciate that update on what the vaccines are doing. My second question deals with biostimulants. In the 2018 Farm Bill, the USDA published a report on plant biostimulants, which included potential regulatory options and definitions. Madam Undersecretary, as we seek to learn more about biostimulants, has the REE mission area dedicated any research to efforts to understanding these products and the impacts they may have on yields and soil health?
Sir, I would say I'm not certain about the biostimulants. Could you tell me just a little bit more about what we mean by biostimulants?
Yes. There are ways to stimulate plants, and then we're doing the genetic changes in plant and animal. Mm-hmm. And so the biostimulants, in my opinion, can stimulate those plants to grow faster or grow in a different way. One example that I can think of would be like the sunflower. You know how they always face the sun? And there's an enzyme on the dark side of that plant that stimulates it to grow more and less. So I think studying those kinds of stimulations in plants and animals are useful to be improving our yields and productivity. Oh, and that, to me, is what I mean by a biostimulants.
Thank you so much for that. My apologies. So certainly, we have some of the world's best genomic, genetic, and germplasm collections in the world. And so it's part of our everyday processes is continue to look at that germplasm collection and find traits and other opportunities to be able to manipulate the genome sequence to be able to produce plants that are resistant to abiotic and biotic stresses. And so we're looking at lots of different types of techniques to be able to use the tools in our toolbox to improve productivity and, in some cases, nutrition as well.
So thank you very much. I see that I'm about out of time, and so now I'll turn it over to the ranking member for her questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Jacobs-Young, I really, again, appreciate you being here today. And it is my understanding that USDA made your implementation plan for the Agriculture Advanced Research and Development Authority, AGARDA, public this week. And we thank you for that. And we have certainly seen the lack of funding for AGARDA, and this is for background, those maybe watching at home, a program authorized in the 2018 Farm Bill to increase U.S. leadership in agricultural research and development. And while we created a program with tremendous potential, from my perspective, and I'm looking for your thoughts, Congress has only appropriated allocated a small one-time amount that did not even provide enough funding to officially even establish AGARDA at USDA. In your opening comments, you talked about the research that's happening in other countries, the need for American competitiveness. Could you just talk a bit more about AGARDA, what it could be, what it should be, and what you want members of Congress to know?
Thank you for your question. First, let me just say that we're excited about the concept of AGARDA, to be able to benchmark off of the success of our federal sister agencies with DARPA, with ARPA-E, with ARPA-H. And what we know is that this opportunity to take some risk, having high-risk projects that potentially could be game changers. And to do that, we need resources. And so we're excited about the potential of the program. And as we look across the federal government, we recognize that resources are going to be needed to be successful. For example, we look at some of our sister agencies, they're $2 billion. Even some of our newer created AGARDA, DARPA-type programs are in the billion-dollar range. And to this date, we've received $2 million, $1 million in FY22 and $1 million in FY23.
And as you mentioned, the other agencies where there's been extraordinary development and innovation, I mean, leading to major innovations that have changed society and our economy and our community and propelled our national security in a kind of blue sky world, what sort of things do you think that a well-funded, kind of mission-oriented AGARDA could achieve or could look at or could dream of bringing to bear?
Well, so I think about some of our most innovative scientists in ARS and how we've had to sort of work around the fringes to find opportunities for them to look at new and different ways of conducting research, changing the paradigm and some of the belief systems we have about how plants or animals fundamentally work. It would give us the space to be able to take those risks and still be responsive to the stakeholders who depend on us to do a lot of the work that we do every day. And so how do we build that into our DNA and make sure that our scientists have enough to be successful? You know, I used to run competitive programs for the National Institute of Food and Agriculture with CSREES, and I remember having a project, and it would be a beautiful project, but if we cut the funding in half so we can fund 2 people because we don't have enough for 1 big award, we've now handicapped the ability of that PI to be successful.
And
and
these are the types of programs, to the chairman's point, looking at what new developments, what new scientific research could really drive agriculture. And to your point, I think the investments and the return on investment that we saw in the last century, kind of what's the new frontier, the way that we can lower input costs, increase output, and support our producers. Thank you very much, and I look forward to speaking about this issue a bit more at length, but in the remaining minute, could you comment on some of the workforce challenges, certainly across the agriculture sphere? I hear back home in the district challenges related to technical assistance, and I know that you all are just as impacted. Could you speak to kind of the skill set and the workforce challenges you may or may not be facing?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share with you that we experienced significant workforce loss when ERS and NIFA were moved to Kansas City. We lost about 75% of our workforce. We've now worked very hard to build both of those agencies back up to full manpower, and we're very excited about that. However, we do know that in 3 years, 1/3 of our workforce is eligible to retire. You know, having been head of the Agricultural Research Service, that's a large number of institutional knowledge walking out of the door potentially. And on the farm, our farmers' average age is somewhere between 58 and 60. So if we don't pay deliberate strategic attention to training the next generation of agricultural professionals, I think we're going to be in a tight spot.
Folks on the farm and folks at USDA, folks in extension
undersecretaries
across the board.
and all the people who will replace us.
Well, thank you for being here. I hope you don't plan to retire anytime soon. Thank you for bringing your experience to bear. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ranking Member. And now I recognize our chairman, who has returned from Pennsylvania, G.T. Thompson.
Chairman Baird, thank you so much. Once again, thank you to you and the ranking member for this hearing, and just thrilled to have our witnesses once again before the committee. Thank you for your leadership and your service. Undersecretary In your written testimony, you mentioned how the REE mission area works with other agencies across the USDA, like the U.S. Forest Service and the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service. Can you talk more about how you coordinate with other USDA mission areas to advance agriculture research across the department? And can you share a couple real-world examples of this collaboration?
Yeah, absolutely. We just talked a little bit about avian influenza and African swine fever. I'll tell you with emergency preparedness, ARS and APHIS are partners. We are building on a long-term cooperation that we have between our agencies. When we experience something like avian influenza, our scientists are right there with the Animal Plant Health Inspection Service, helping to come in and detect and diagnose what exactly we're dealing with. And we're also there using science and data to help drive the mitigation strategy, some of our response strategy, some of our biosecurity management practices. So we really partner with them on any instance that we see of an animal outbreak in the country. I think about an example in the grain community. We had an issue where some of our producers were not receiving the complete value for their grain. Our scientists went in and determined what was impacting the price, and it turned out it was an issue of elevation. And so our scientists worked with NASA using some of their zero gravity facilities to be able to create conversion factors. Then, with that, being able to return some of those financial and economic advantages back to the producers. So we're dealing with real-world challenges. Science is one of the strategic goals of the department. It has been integrated into everything we do. So REE is very fortunate. We get to work across the entire department.
Well, thank you for that collaboration, that synergy, all grounded in science.
All grounded.
You really provide us some well-grounded and, quite frankly, workable solutions as a result of that. Much appreciated. You mentioned in your testimony that there are not enough college graduates available to meet private and public sector employer needs within food and agriculture. How can we further support the work youth development programs like 4-H and FFA are doing to develop the next generation of agriculturalists?
So let me first say, I had my first FFA conference this last year. It was quite the experience. I was just with the 4-H youth a couple of weeks ago here in Washington, D.C. They are an important component of the system that we have for the pipeline. And I think it's critically important that they see people that look like me, that see the people that look like everyone in this room today, to recognize that this is what an agriculturist looks like, and that there are many wonderful opportunities. I also think that there is an important role for our community engagement. We partner with a high school in Chicago, Illinois, in the south side of Chicago, with our Three Sisters program. It's a high school that is a lottery program, having kids out of the south side of Chicago studying agriculture. They have a farm, they have animals, they have a farmer's market. And our scientists are in there working with them hand in hand. And they did not go to that school because they were interested in agriculture. They were chosen by a lottery. And our goal is that as many of them as possible who are now FFA members, and they will one day be in our laboratories and in our hallways down the street here on Independence Avenue, just really making sure that we make kids aware about the interesting things that agriculture holds. It's so high tech.
Yeah, I share your passion for that, and I appreciate that. In fact, we worked hard in the 2018 Farm Bill to create an agricultural youth coordinator at USDA. However, it is my understanding that this position is currently vacant. Previously, when the position was filled, how did REE mission area work with the coordinator to ensure youth want to pursue careers in agriculture?
That is a great question, Congressman. I don't have the answer to that. I think it might have predated my time in this role, but would be wonderfully happy to follow up with you on that.
Sounds good, and I'm hoping that position once again is filled. I think that's critical to the future of this nation's #1 industry, which is agriculture, and the future of agriculture, which is, quite frankly, all those young folks that are out there. Thank you, Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And next we have Ms. Budzinski from Illinois.
Thank you, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a privilege to hear from you today, Dr. Jacobs-Young. And Undersecretary, I have a question for you regarding artificial intelligence. Advances in artificial intelligence, as you know, continue to be increasingly important across many industries, including agriculture. I represent the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, which proudly hosts the AI Farms, one of the 4 USDA-funded AI institutes. Over the past 2.5 years, AI Farms has already made significant advancements in small robot autonomy, in computer vision for more labor-efficient livestock production, and in AI algorithms for improved measurements of carbon sequestration. AI Farms, as well as the other AI institutes for agriculture, have collectively attracted many prominent AI researchers to collaborate on important problems in the ag domain. But these collaborations could easily be lost without continued investment in research on AI for agriculture. Could you share USDA's plans for continuing this important investment in promoting advances in ag through AI technology?
Absolutely. So artificial intelligence has been integrated into our DNA, not just in our scientific space, but also in our administrative space. I don't know how many times you've applied for something for the federal government. We now have AI that can come in and help you put the information in once and have it filter out to every document. So we've integrated it into our DNA. We've established a center of excellence around artificial intelligence. We recognize that to do that, it's going to need a systems approach. And so we are building on the work of our colleagues over in the rural development area who are working so hard to get broadband into some of those rural communities where we want to apply this AI. We are working on training the next generation of bioinformaticists, AI professionals. We're also retraining some of our workforce to work in this space. We're looking at ways to be able to help the producers be more successful. We heard at the Ag Outlook Forum, we had a wonderful panel of producers who suffer from labor shortages. And we know that innovation is the way to help accomplish some of those needs. It starts with our plant breeders who can breed varieties that can be mechanically and automatically harvested, and then all of our engineers and our AI specialists to be able to develop those robotics and other sensors we need.
Thank you for that, Doctor. I have a second question. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about the Foundation for Food and Agriculture Research, FFR. We know that FFR was established in the 2014 Farm Bill as a means of leveraging federal agriculture research dollars by requiring the foundation to obtain matching funds from non-federal entities to invest in priority areas that do not normally receive adequate funding from either public or private sources. Since, however, it has been unable to obtain self-sustainable status, in your opinion, have the federal funds allocated to the foundation in the past 2 farm bills been a good investment of those resources? And could you speak to the value of the research that is being done?
Well, I would share with you that the establishment of the Foundation for Food and Ag Research the goal was to be able to help us to build better and stronger public-private partnerships. Some things that are outside the authorities of the Department of Agriculture. So they are really established to be our partner. I serve as an ex officio member of the board. The Agriculture Research Service and the NIFA leads also serve as ex officio members of the board. And we work very, very hard to ensure that we have some coordination around the topics that we study. We are working with the Foundation for Food and Ag Research at this time around a big Aim for Climate Summit that we're going to be holding in May, using their convening power and their ability to bring the right people together and to partner with us. So I will share that I've had a very positive experience working with FAR. In terms of sustainability, I believe that those questions would be best answered by someone else. Maybe Dr. Sahara Moon Chapatin, who is the executive director for FAR. But I do see great value in what they've brought to the table, and I enjoy working with them.
Wonderful, thank you. And if I could sneak in one more question for you. I wanted to ask you about the National Institute of Food and Agriculture's Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network. Do you feel NIFA's interpretation of the term network, quote unquote network, to mean regional and not within a state, and the decision to operate FARSIN as it did was the right approach? It's my understanding that as a result, land grants in the state ended up competing against the Department of Agriculture in the same state. Is there a reason why you didn't focus on allowing states to build up the networks in their states as opposed to now having regional networks that may be duplicating efforts and taking resources away from the successful state efforts?
I see that we're short on time. What I would promise you is a follow-up conversation. We're staying ready for TA and any legislative, conversations you'd like to have, and we want to implement the program in the way Congress intended. So we want to help our producers. I think we're all on the same page, so I look forward to those conversations.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Undersecretary, for helping keep us on time. Appreciate that. Next, we have another gentlewoman from Illinois, Representative Miller.
Thank you. Undersecretary Jacobs-Young, thank you for coming this morning. According to data collected by USDA's Economic Research Service, China's public investment in agricultural research and development has been outspending the U.S. by roughly 2 to 1. In your opinion, what has this research funding disadvantage meant for the U.S. agriculture in recent decades?
So I would sum it up that we have missed opportunities. And when we look at the state of agricultural research and public agricultural research in the United States, we recognize that there are a couple of needs that we have. We need increased public investments. If we're going to push the envelope and do some of the innovative things that we talked about, we have to have resources to do that. And so are we missing opportunities to grow in areas that we've not had enough resources to do? Infrastructure-wise, the lack of the need for increased public investments. We look at the backlog of deferred maintenance, not just in the government, but even at our land-grant universities. Those are missed opportunities. And then we talk about the next generation of ag professionals. We need funding to train those people and be prepared.
Thank you. I have another question. I've heard from stakeholder groups about the need to provide the National Agricultural Statistics Service with better resources to improve alfalfa price estimates. Can you describe briefly how NASS currently estimates alfalfa prices and what resources would be necessary for them to improve their estimate?
So I will share, first I'll share about our opportunities to modernize the systems that undergird NASS's processes. I think that they have the best and most trusted data around. And so I really am committed to working with NASS to not only have a robust program, but also have modernized IT infrastructure under that program. I would suggest that we follow up with Administrator Hamer to get more specifics on the alfalfa cost estimates segment of their work. We are delivering reports every week and really working very hard to be the trusted source of data for the American people. And so I would look forward to following up with you on that specific survey.
Okay, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I yield back.
Thank you for those questions. And now we have another representative from Illinois, Mr. Sorensen.
What's going on?
3 in a row. Midwest is best. Undersecretary Jacobs-Young, thank you for joining us today to help us identify how Congress can improve our USDA research enterprise. The University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign is one of our nation's premier land-grant universities. The U of I extension is purposefully designed to ensure that research-based knowledge is not confined to the academic space, but also it's shared within farmers and local communities. As a professional meteorologist, I have looked through and needed the data that the U of I extension has provided me in my career. The problem is the U of I extension provides over $600 million of value to the state of Illinois each year, but it's 10 times more than its budget. Yet the next generation of agricultural scholars are still learning in facilities that are built in the 1950s. We must improve the Research Facilities Act to address our deferred research maintenance backlog. So my question to you is, how do we increase investment to modernize research and agriculture infrastructure, not only in Illinois, but across the nation?
Yes. How do we do that? Having most recently been the administrator for the Agriculture Research Service, I've been a broken record around our need to modernize our scientific infrastructure. It only takes walking around the land-grant university campus and seeing the engineering facilities, seeing the medical schools. I mean, even some of the chemistry buildings are better. And then there's our 1964 building right there. You ever been to Penn State's campus? It's right across from the ice creamery. It's hard to hide. And so students are walking around that campus, and that's what they see. And so how do we attract the best and the brightest? And we visually, we're not even competitive with some of the other industries that are represented. But more importantly than that, we want to attract the best and brightest scientists from anywhere to work in agriculture, both within the university system and within the federal government. And they must be in modernized facilities with modernized equipment. Yet, I was riding in with the administrator of ARS this morning, and we're upwards almost to $1 billion in deferred maintenance across the country. So let alone rebuilding buildings, we cannot keep up with deferred maintenance. And that story is the same in the land-grant university system. And so I look forward to working with Congress to have conversations about how we address this need for modernized facilities.
Just could you give us any examples on what Congress's role should be in making sure that this occurs?
Well, I'll give you an example for the Agriculture Research Service. In 2015, based on a capital investment strategy, we received the first $45 million in terms of reinvesting in our capital across the country. Since that point, we've received $1.3 billion. And I will share with you, because of Congress's support, ARS has been able to build facilities and to begin facilities, and most of them are on land-grant university campuses. And so I'm very excited that in that effort, I was not only able to help ARS, but to help our university partners as well. At U of I, we have the RIPE project. I'm a little frustrated because some of my scientists are walking down the hall and joining your team for the U of I, but that's how we work. We're seamless. You can walk into some universities and you can't tell who is an ARS scientist and who is a university scientist. That's the strength of the partnership that we share.
As a professional meteorologist, I know the unpredictable pace of change that with our weather and markets. It dictates the need for ongoing learning and professional development. The reality is that few careers are static. They require lifelong learning. How can the USDA ensure that our producers of all levels of experience have access and continuing access to the education they need to thrive?
Oh, great question. And that's where extension, that's like you said, extension is so important. And we have a growing partnership with technical cooperators across the country. Instead of rebuilding the wheel, we're working with community organizations and others that are already out there working with the producers and working hand in hand with them to help raise the awareness about programs that they're eligible for, talk about things like financial planning, how to be more successful in their production. You know, what does science say about when to till or not to till? And so we're out there every day working across the country, multiplying our efforts with those cooperators.
Thank you, Madam Undersecretary, for being here today. I yield back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we go to the middle part of the country, Minnesota. Mr. Finstad, do you have questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity here today, and I thank you for holding this important hearing on USDA research programs, especially when we approach the reauthorization of the Farm Bill. And to you, Madam Undersecretary, thank you. Thanks for your leadership, and thanks for being here today and your testimony. So I'm a proud fourth-generation farmer of southern Minnesota and a product of the University of Minnesota, our state's land-grant university. Go Gophers. And I understand the importance of strong investment in ag research through both the Ag Research Service and the National Institute for Food and Agriculture. Investments in ag research result in direct value for our farmers in rural communities. And as a farmer, I see it firsthand. Farm and food security really is our national security. And it's so important that we link those areas together. And as we write, that's really why we must write and pass a strong farm bill to help our farmers to continue to compete on a global stage and really feed and fuel the world for years to come. So on that note, when we talk about our job as farmers and as folks involved in agriculture to feed and fuel the world, we just have to look at some recent data. Last November, the world population reached 8 billion.
Yep.
And from the Green Revolution, from Norman Borlaug, from all of the advancements that we've seen to most recently self-driving tractors, which my kids love the idea of, by the way. My father, not so much. But on our farm, we've adapted to a lot of those technologies, and really our 112 land-grant universities have played a critical role in that. And as we look at the future and more cutting-edge technology needed to secure our domestic and global food supply throughout America's history, we really look to those land-grant universities as partners in that. But with that being said, all farmers should have the freedom to utilize practices that work on their operation. What works for me doesn't work in Illinois. What works for me doesn't even work in northern Minnesota. And so we can't put all our eggs in one basket. So for instance, America can't rely solely on rooftop gardens. Mm-hmm. We can't rely solely on organic agriculture. It needs to be an all of the above strategy. And that's really what will allow us to remain the breadbasket for the world. So Madam Undersecretary, how can we ensure that competitive grants provided by NEFA to land-grant universities, land-grant organizations, prioritize the needs of on-the-ground production agriculture that will really help us spur the next green revolution, which will enhance productivity and profitability while meeting the needs of a growing population?
Thank you, and yes, to everything you said. And that's why, at USDA, we're really working very hard to have local-led, voluntary-based, incentive-based, opportunities. I think about the way we're distributed across the country. We're in every county. We recognize that there's not one size that fits all. And so that's why we have that decentralized approach. We're really working to build a system that has opportunities for all, so that fourth generation and the fifth generation and the sixth generation really has something to come back to. And so how do we help all farmers be more resilient? And the only way we know that is being on the ground, talking to the farmers about what's important to them. We have set up climate hubs across the country. And those climate hubs are taking all of the science and peer-reviewed journal papers that we produce, and I know ARS does some 300 to 400 climate science papers a year. I don't expect a producer to read those papers, but we have people in the climate hubs who are trained to take that information and translate it into digestible bites for producers to know exactly what works for their farming production based on their variables. That's very important. We have long-term agroecosystem research network sites, 18 across the country, where producers are brought in to practice some of those things like crop rotation, like no-till, to really de-risk some of that, because adoption is really where we find most of the challenges that we deal with. We have great suggestions, great guidance, even in the nutrition space. I know what I need to do to lose weight. How do we get people to do and follow the guidance that we give?
Yeah, thank you for that. And I will just add maybe a couple thoughts here as I close out my time. But I will tell you, as a farmer and someone that works with and beside farmers day in, day out, we are the best environmentalists that we have in this country. I cannot risk my backyard, my fields, to the next generation if I'm not taking care of it and leave it better than I found it. So I think that the more we can allow producers opportunities and flexibilities, the more we can decentralize programs. The next farm bill has to be for farmers, by farmers. It can't be for DC, by DC. And these programs have to relate to the backyard of the people that we're trying to serve. So I appreciate your comments and look forward to working with you in the future. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Thank you very much for those questions. Now we go to the southwest part of our country, New Mexico. Representative Vasquez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much, Undersecretary, for being here. This hearing is focused on a topic that affects the future of farms across the country and one that New Mexico contributes to every day. My district is home to my alma mater, New Mexico State University. It's one of the largest land grants, and it conducts critical agricultural research across the state, and is also home to one of the Southwest climate hubs that you just spoke about. Some programs include optimizing sustainable production on arid lands, partnerships that we have with countries overseas to aid in that research and production of crops on arid lands, and how to revegetate lands after devastating wildfires. And programs like these are invaluable in the fight against climate change nationwide. And we need to support climate-smart initiatives and reinvigorate ag practices at research institutions like New Mexico State University now more than ever. Now, recently, I met with researchers from Las Cruces, and I heard about the aging infrastructure both at New Mexico State facilities, extension facilities, and other research facilities. In fact, there is a $100 million deferred maintenance backlog at New Mexico State University for this very type of research. And some of the facilities that we are using are housing, they're housing our students and our researchers are more than 50 years old. So Undersecretary, how does USDA plan to address the infrastructure problems and backlogs to make sure that our institutions of higher learning like New Mexico State are equipped to find solutions to these modern problems?
So we've had a number of opportunities to work with Congress around this topic. I shared just recently that as ARS administrator, we developed a capital investment strategy for ARS, the Agricultural Research Service. We have some 3,100 buildings across the country, a $6 billion portfolio of buildings, and the deferred maintenance is up toward $1 billion. Our university system, our land grant partners, I know that APLU has been leading an effort to really look at the infrastructure challenges that the land grant universities are facing. A third of the ARS labs are located on land grant university campuses. And that's where we have an opportunity. Thus far, since 2015, we received about $1.3 billion to invest in buildings and facilities. We just cut the ribbon on our brand new Southeast Poultry Research Laboratory in Athens, Georgia. We're going to cut the ribbon on 2 new facilities in May, the National Bio-Agro-Defense Facility and a new facility in Kentucky. So we have some momentum. I just think I'm a former track athlete. I just feel like somebody's in the third curve and I'm still back in the second because we had a long way to go to catch up. And so every day we don't invest in the deferred maintenance, we have to rebuild a building instead of modernize or make minor changes. So we've got to find an opportunity, and I look forward to working with Congress to figure out how do we get our arms around this big challenge of modernized infrastructure for science.
Thank you, Undersecretary. I look forward to partnering with you on that because I think it is much needed, especially in remote places and rural communities like the ones at New Mexico State. Now, we also have research and weather stations across the state measured and record statistics important to things like wildfire mitigation, crucial to our state, after one of the most destructive wildfire seasons in our history. In fact, New Mexico's 2 largest wildfires happened just last year, eliminating and decimating our agricultural industry in many parts of our state and my district. Researchers have to drive to some of these very remote and rural stations just to download the data because these sites are not eligible for a majority of broadband grants. So Undersecretary, what is USDA doing to ensure that academic facilities like NMSU and other places are eligible for these broadband programs to make it easier to collect the data that we critically need to help understand the challenges that we face in the future?
Well, certainly I will suggest that we may want to have a conversation with my colleagues at the Rural Development who are in charge of Reconnect, because I'm not exactly certain about all of the eligibility for their grants. However, I will share that when I first became administrator of the Agricultural Research Service in 2014, I had this bright idea that I would communicate with our people around the country, and we'd talk, and I learned quickly that they couldn't get the feed because their broadband was, their service was just too weak. And so for the first year, I had to back up instead of doing high-tech Internet 2 infrastructure for high-performance computing. We had to do things that put basic administrative broadband in so we could just get our jobs done. And in some places, we had to put in infrastructure because it just didn't exist. We've come a long way since 2014. And I think that together, working with our missionary partners and working with Congress, that we can get our arms around this challenge. I mean, I say the most advanced country in the world. We should definitely have our arms around this.
Thank you, Undersecretary. I appreciate your comments today, and thank you for being here. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you for those questions. And now we go to the middle part of the country, into Missouri, and Representative Walford.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Jacobs-Young, thank you so much for being here. You're quite an asset to the department, and I appreciate your testimony today. Missouri is the 6th largest producer of hogs in the United States of America. It's a lot of hogs. Porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome, also known as PRRS, can really wipe out an entire operation, and so we're ever mindful of that. University of Missouri has done some great research of that. They have been doing some gene editing. They have come up with a PRRS-resistant hog. Actually, you probably know about this. Unfortunately, the FDA regulatory approval process has kind of stymied this. When are we going to get to the point to where the FDA is helping us instead of hindering us so we can get PRRS under control and make sure that our hog farmers are secure?
Well, first, yes, we are working with the University of Missouri on that project, and I'm just very excited about it. You know, we have one of the most advanced processes in terms of data-driven, science-driven processes in the world. I know this by talking to a number of my colleagues, chief scientists from the G20 countries. It's going to require a systems approach of all of us working together. You know, when we talk about the agricultural enterprise that we envision, it's a systems approach. I think that my colleagues at FDA would be best at answering the question on when. And USDA stands ready to have those conversations with whoever would like to have them.
I guess in general, how do we get through the process faster so we're not hampering research and development? We're supporting it as a nation.
So I would share that we haven't stopped researching. We don't wait until we have all the perfect, you know, that's the beauty of public investments in agriculture research. So we've been studying that in University of Missouri. Those public scientists have been studying this all along. We're doing science. We're pushing the envelope on science because that's what we should be doing. We should be thinking about the science for 20 years from now, 50 years from now. And then you're right, there's going to be a system that's going to be needed to facilitate the implementation of some of those discoveries and technologies. I mean, I think about a decade ago, we couldn't imagine CRISPR-Cas9, which has now been instituted across, you know, many industries. And so what is the CRISPR-Cas9 for 20 years from now? We can't start then. We started yesterday trying to plan for that, and then some things have to catch up.
We were visiting with some farmers last couple of weeks ago down in the southern part of our district, and there are young farmers who want to stay in their family farms. There's a bill moving through the State House right now for some state tax incentives to do that. I know that in the 2018 Farm Bill, one of the programs that was reauthorized was the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Grant Program. Where do we go with that? How do we expand that? And would you be in favor of federal tax incentives to get more young people into ag?
Well, I'll share with you that we're very excited about the Beginning Farmers and Ranchers Development Program. It is a program that really puts the need for a pipeline for new producers, you know, as a high priority. We're working with farmers and producers who have less than 10 years in the business to be able to remove barriers, to be able to enter farming. We want to make sure that we're there hand in hand, teaching them some of the things that need to happen around financial planning and to be economically successful. We're working with organizations across the country to make sure that this happens. one of the things we want to do as well is to emphasize equity and really focusing on some of those producers who've been underserved or never served, and so making sure that they can return to the farm, and for our veterans. You know, we want to make sure that our veterans have an opportunity, if he or she comes back to the United States or was in the military and retired, if they want to begin farming, how do we help them? And then agribility, where we work with our producers who may have some disabilities who want to be on the farm. I'm more apt and able to talk to you about the things that I know that we have the control over and that we can do from a USDA perspective than about tax incentives. But I will share with you that we're doing all we can to help people stay on the farm, and if they're interested in farming, become farmers.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I yield back.
Thank you. And now we're going to stay in the middle of the country with Representative Davis from Kansas.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Undersecretary Jacobs-Young, for joining us here today. So I'm in the Kansas 3rd District, which is in the Kansas City metro area. I feel like I didn't know we were going to be so outnumbered by the Illinois folks, but that's okay. So I want to build on some of the things that you have already touched on through various questions today, including, how Title VII supports the internal and external research engines of the USDA and the federal government in general, and then how our farmers and producers are getting so much of the data from that research that USDA agencies, the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, Economic Research Service, we've been hearing about this during this conversation today. And there are a number of land-grant institutions, either in my area or in my district, including a K-State Extension. Haskell Indian Nations University is right next door. And I know there's just a lot of conversation happening around the ways that these institutions help support. And I was, hearing that a third of the ARS labs are at land-grant universities is pretty enlightening. I'm curious, as we look at, and I've been having these roundtables and listening sessions with folks who are doing that work and farmers and producers in my district, the deferred maintenance has come up a number of times, and then it came up a number of times today. I'm curious if you can talk about what are some of the maybe provisions or areas that we should be looking at to make sure that the things that I'm hearing about from folks at K-State or Haskell or other land-grant universities, what they're sharing about the deferred maintenance. Like, let's say we get some funding there for that to address the billion-dollar backlog. What are some of the specific things we should be thinking about as Congress to ensure that the prioritization happens in a way that's going to be most beneficial for these for the land-grant universities?
So I know that the APLU, the American Public and Land-Grant University Organization, has been leading an effort with the land-grant universities. We've had several meetings, probably in the last, I'd say, 7 or 8 years, talking about our shared interest and goals around deferred maintenance and investments in new modernized infrastructure. The federal government, we cannot commingle funds. And so when I build a building and then I put it on a campus, and the university scientists use our facility at NC State, for example, they just built a brand new plant science building with public-private partnerships, and some of our scientists work in their facility. We're building a facility which is going to be a totally different type of facility, much, much smaller, third of the size and cost. However, their scientists will also, as appropriate, use our facility. So we can share, we can have that sort of, I would say, family relationship where we can share facilities. So internally, in the Agriculture Research Service, we've created a capital investment strategy. We've looked across the country at our facilities, all of our facilities. We've determined where we're doing our highest priority research in the lowest quality facilities. And so that's how we're prioritizing where we invest. At K-State University, we will be cutting the ribbon on the National Bio-Agro-Defense Facility. As you know, it's the first BSL-4 facility for agriculture. It is and it's an amazing facility. I was just there, I think, the week before Super Bowl. $1.25 billion building. The facility itself is $1.25 billion. And so the goals or the commitments that we need to make sure that that is successful requires resources.
Yeah.
And so it's a conversation I think we should have more time to go into where the needs are. I know that we can point to where the biggest investment needs are, and then talk about maybe strategies to address them.
Yeah, and I'll look forward to following up, actually, so we can have those conversations. And then in the short amount of time I have left, I do want to just mention, I'm going to talk to the chairman about the youth coordinator position, and how we can make sure that that gets filled. And then also, I will probably follow up with you about the USDA collection of responses from farmers and ranchers for the 2022 census, agriculture census, because I'd love to make sure that we're doing everything we can to get the best data as possible, and I will yield back.
Yeah, can I quickly share on the Census of Agriculture that we have, for the first time, gone to online, we're doing a parallel online paper process, and I'm just so excited that a lot of our responses are coming in online. And we just continue to try to modernize NASA's infrastructure and the way they do business.
Thank you for those questions. And now we're going to go all the way across the United States to California. And Representative Durante from California.
Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here, Dr. Jacobs-Young. Appreciate having you. I am a farmer. I have researchers on staff, and I work with a lot of farmers in industry. And I see some trends coming and some stuff in the industry I'd really like to get your input on. One is a lot of our ag startup companies, plant sensing, environmental sensing, irrigation management, drones, are coming out of Israel. And they're tied into the Israeli defense complex, if there is such a thing. And I'm wondering, are there greater opportunities for us in the U.S. agricultural research to engage our Department of Energy, Department of Defense, even Department of Human Health Services when it comes to molecular biology and other tools, and make sure that we're really extending out what some of the industrial, military, energy, and medical research is and what its implications are for agriculture. Do you feel we're doing enough of that, or is there a way we could help you do more of it?
Well, I will share with you that we partner with our sister agencies all the time. And some of our biggest discoveries in agriculture have been implemented by the Department of Defense. You know, we just think about something as simple as mosquito repellent DEET that was developed in Agriculture Research Service to protect our warfighters. So we're partnering with the Department of Energy around producing the 36 billion gallons of sustainable aviation fuel that the airlines have committed to by 2030, that they want to be able to move in a sustainable direction. So we're working very hard with those agencies, and in some cases it's important for us to work with them because their budgets are much larger than our research budgets, and so there are some synergies, and there are also some opportunities to be able to help strategize, you know, how they invest on some things.
Sure. Well, I would specifically ask that you seek opportunities. My perception is that there's more to get, and that we haven't gotten all there is to gain there. And I do think that if there are opportunities there, I'd sure love to help facilitate that any way we can. Memorandums of understanding between agencies, or again, anything we need to do to facilitate that, because I personally have seen some technologies come out of the Los Alamos laboratory on peptide research that have huge implications for plant health. And not to be specific about that, but there's more to get there. And I've got Livermore laboratories right next to my right next to my district, and I'd love to see it helping us more. Another question I have: there's a lot of gains being made in big data, environmental sensing, drone flyovers, AI models that crunch big data and come in with different conclusions that we can apply commercially. And I am concerned that I don't understand, and I'd hope that we do understand somehow, How are we taking the AI modeling, the big data crunching, and facilitating our land-grant universities to have a specific empirical standard and a specific standard that allows those new AI methods and big data gathering methods to kind of start to replace the statistic variables, the single statistic multivariate models that we use to give 95% confidence, 99% confidence. What are those methods, and what does it mean to be publishable when we're talking about AI models and big data research methods?
So big data is it's a big deal. We began investing in high-performance computing in ARS 2015, 2014. We began just with a small investment because we were kind of ahead of the curve. We now have a robust scientific network that's separate than administrative networking, but where we can do high-performance computing, store all this data. I remember touring one of your scientists out in California, and he was ahead of the curve many, many years ago, and he was telling us how much data he was producing a second, and I just thought that was crazy. And now I think we tripled it. But where do you store it? How do you share it? How do you visualize it? How do you do computations? We've invested in scientific networking, and now we are partnering with some land-grant universities. We've partnered with Iowa State University, and we've partnered with Mississippi State University.
Let me ask you another question. How do we make sure that there's a set of data standards and empirical standards where we can communicate that to farmers to where they know what it means? We know what 99% confidence means if we have a single variate, trial. How do farmers develop the skill set to understand what this empiricism that we might derive from big data means in terms of their ability to read land-grant university information and apply it on their farm with confidence?
So our goal is to build the tools that producers can use, that can be on their phone, that can be on their laptops, and that hopefully they never have to understand all of the equations and the derivatives and everything that happens in the background, but that it would be user-friendly. I talked about setting up the climate hub so that our people are taking that data and translating it into digestible nuggets so that it can be easily applied by producers on their farms. And so I really feel that's part of our onus to be able to do a lot of that. And we have lots of teams working together on what's called FAIR, data that's findable, accessible, interchangeable, and reproducible. So there are a number of standards that have been created around the data world. And we have experts working in there. We have a Center of Excellence on Artificial Intelligence. And so I'm hoping we'll do all of that, and that all they have to do is pull up their phone, put in their variables, and have a decision tool that can tell them which direction to go in for their specific issue.
Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. We have one more individual from Ohio, Representative Miller. 5 minutes.
Chairman Baird and Ranking Member Spanberger, thank you for allowing me to participate in this subcommittee hearing to review vital research initiatives undertaken to strengthen and sustain American agriculture, critical to farm production in my congressional district and those throughout the country. Last week, I had the opportunity to view firsthand the agricultural research initiatives undertaken by Ohio State University College of Food, Agriculture, and Environmental Sciences on the Worcester campus in my congressional district. These innovative research programs included deployment of state-of-the-art technologies in partnerships with USDA's Agricultural Research Service throughout Ohio State University's Application Technology Research Unit, utilizing a multidisciplinary digital approach to enhance crop protection while safeguarding environmental quality. Additional vital research programs also included plant pathology research, molecular genomics, epidemiology, and risk prediction to safeguard crops in my state and across the nation, as well as the nation's 3 biosafety level 3 agricultural laboratories. Undersecretary Jacobs-Young, in your testimony, you highlight the fact that production agriculture requires constant innovation and adaptation, and access to information and new technologies underpins each of these objectives. Please let us know how USDA's research, education, and economics mission area supports advanced agricultural technologies to accelerate innovative research tools critical to meet growing agricultural challenges.
Yes, that's who we are. That's our role. Our role is to be the leading experts in the development of technologies and research and discoveries that agriculture is going to need to move us into the future. We talked a little bit about needing to be able to take some more risk and giving some of our scientists space to take risk. Because with risk sometimes come failure. And so we need to have a system that supports that, because also with that high-risk research, we have an opportunity to be transformative. And so what you had an opportunity to see at Ohio State is just a taste of what's happening across the country. And they can only do that because of the continued support from Congress and the investments that you're making in both the USDA researchers and the land-grant university researchers. And if we can do what we've done with what we've had, imagine what we could do if we were on par with our colleagues around the world.
It is unbelievable. When you look at the technology and you go to the campuses and where all this technology is being produced, it just makes you so proud that they are taking care of the American farmer in this country. But I believe that more can be done to go ahead and enhance that to make sure it's more efficient across the entire country. Just wanted to say, let's see, please, Undersecretary, please let me know how the USDA collaborating with its interagency partners, in addition to serving on the House Committee on Agriculture. I'm also seated on the Committee of Science, Space, and Technology. Recently, the Science Committee held a hearing to examine the interagency research partnerships, including with the Department of Agriculture. We welcomed USDA's witness testimony. However, I understand it was not able to be provided. Undersecretary Jacobs-Young, can you talk about how USDA works with other federal agencies that may have larger research budgets, such as the Department of Energy, of the National Science Foundation, and others, to ensure that investments in agriculture research are broadened and not limited to USDA?
Oh, absolutely. And NASA. We work with NASA as well. We must. I mean, I'm a 21-year career federal employee, and so it's just part of what we do, working with our sister agencies. In the Department of Energy, working in the space of bioenergy and biofuels. You know, USDA has a unique role in that the feedstock development, the feedstock production, and then there's some conversion technologies. And then working with NIH in spaces like nutrition. Working in spaces where we talk about things like this bridging that gap between public health and the nutrition space, National Science Foundation, well, water, energy, climate nexus. So we've been able to really partner with our federal agencies. As I said before, many of them have larger budgets than us. And what's fortunate is that we have some common areas of prioritization, and so we're able to partner on those. And through the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, many of our interagency groups were brought together, and I've chaired a number of those over the years. So it's just, we wouldn't be successful if we didn't have these strong partnerships with our federal agencies.
Good. I love to hear it, and I just want to say thank you for your time here this morning. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Member. I yield back.
Thank you, and that's all of the questions I have. Ranking Member, do you have any other
questions or comments? I would just want to say in closing, thank you for being here. I think it's been an extraordinary conversation. Mr. Chairman, thank you for putting this hearing together. I really appreciated a lot of the comments that you made in your written testimony and in your opening statement, that I think for any member on this committee, with all of our geographic diversity, certainly we see the good work that your employees do and your team does on behalf of the producers and the agricultural communities that we all represent. I think there are many action items for us as we head towards the 2023 Farm Bill to make sure that we are leveraging the tremendous investment that comes in recognizing the value of research. And certainly I appreciate the chairman for having this be our first subcommittee hearing. I think that speaks a lot to the priorities that you're putting before us. And I appreciate that as a member, but also as a representative to so many agricultural communities. And so thank you for being here, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for this great conversation, and I yield back.
Well, thank you, and I have a few comments, and thank you for your appreciation of the Undersecretary for being here. And I want to add mine. I really appreciate your comments and your willingness to bring you and your staff to be with us, be with this committee. And, you know, I think I better understand why you have all the responsibilities you do. The way my figures show that you were outnumbered 12-1 and you handled it very well. So, so thank you for being here. I would just say that this first hearing of the Subcommittee on Conservation Research and Biotechnology in the 118th Congress is also taking place during the National Ag Week. So I think how fitting that you're here today and that this group is here and we're having this committee meeting. So I really appreciate the ranking member. I look forward to working with you and having this committee do other things. I don't think any of us can, and we've heard that all day today, I don't think any of us can forget the importance of agricultural research. This $20 to $1 investment, I think, is very telling. And to do that and to feed all the people in the world, we are going to have that kind of research if we're going to keep the most abundant and most affordable food and fiber supply. And so continuing American leadership in ag research is critical to our national importance. And so with that, I thank you for being here. Before we adjourn, though, I got to tell you that under the rules of the committee, the record of today's hearing will remain open for 10 days, calendar days. And so you have the opportunity to add additional material or supplementary written responses from the witnesses to any question proposed by a member. So if I hear no other comments or questions, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.